I started at this company 8 months ago because the hours made sense with my daughter's school schedule. 6:15 to 2:30, Monday through Friday, driving a temperature-controlled van between 14 medical offices and 3 reference laboratories in the eastern half of Franklin County. The work was simple. Show up, load the morning coolers, follow the route, scan the barcodes, get signatures, come home in time to pick up Chloe from the bus stop at 3:05. My husband Darren worked construction and didn't get in until 6 most evenings, so that window between school and dinner was mine and Chloe's, and I protected it. The company was called Meridian Specimen Logistics. Small outfit. Maybe 30 drivers total across central Ohio, operating out of a converted tire shop on Groveport Road with a loading dock they'd added in 2019. The owner was a man named Peter Lasko, mid-50s, soft-spoken, who'd built the business from a single refrigerated van he drove himself in the 90s. He still came in most mornings, parked his Buick in the same spot by the fence, drank his coffee from a thermos at his desk in the back office. Normal man. Normal company. I want to be clear about that. The routes were structured. I had a laminated card with my stops, the expected pickup and delivery windows, the access codes for after-hours lockboxes at 2 of the smaller clinics. My van was a white 2021 Ford Transit with the Meridian logo on both sides, a blue circle with an arrow passing through it. Inside, the cargo area had 2 large coolers bolted to the floor, one rated for ambient specimens and one for frozen. There was a tablet mounted on the dash for scanning and electronic signatures, and a lockbox behind the passenger seat for anything requiring chain of custody documentation. For the first 5 months, I never touched the lockbox. My route was clean. I picked up blood draws, urine samples, tissue biopsies sealed in formalin, occasionally a rack of culture swabs. Everything was labeled, barcoded, and logged into the system before I even arrived. The clinics had their own phlebotomists and lab techs who prepared the packages. I just moved them from point A to point B, kept the temperature stable, and confirmed delivery. The work was boring in a good way. I listened to podcasts. I ate lunch in the van at Antrim Park, watching joggers circle the lake. I was home by 2:40 most days. In October, Peter asked me to start carrying the lockbox items. He explained it simply. Certain specimens had additional privacy requirements, genetic testing, paternity cases, some forensic stuff from 2 of the clinics that did contract work for the county. These came in sealed containers with no external labels beyond a tracking number. No patient name. No test description. No origin clinic identifier on the outside. Just a 6-digit code printed on a white adhesive label. I was to pick them up from designated staff at designated times, place them in the lockbox, deliver them to the designated recipients, and get a signature. Same as everything else, just with an extra layer of discretion. He called them blind chain specimens. I'd later learn that nobody outside Meridian used that term. The lockbox items came in small insulated pouches, roughly the size of a hardcover book. They were light, a few ounces at most. They didn't slosh like liquid. They didn't have the hard edges of a sample rack. They felt soft inside, almost like fabric folded around something delicate. The pouches were always warm to the touch, which I found odd because most specimens need to be kept cool or frozen. But Peter said certain cultures required incubation temperatures during transit, and I didn't question it. I had no reason to. If you're listening to this late at night, alone, if this is the kind of thing you come back to when the house is quiet and you can't sleep, then stay. Subscribe to this channel. I don't know who else to tell this to anymore, and the fact that someone out there is listening matters more than I can explain right now. The deliveries for the lockbox items were different from my regular stops. They didn't go to labs. They went to private residences. The first one was a house on Dempsey Road in Westerville. A split-level, beige siding, basketball hoop in the driveway. I pulled up at 9:40 a.m. on a Tuesday. A woman came to the door, 40s, dressed for work, pleasant. She signed the tablet, took the pouch, and thanked me like I'd delivered a package from Amazon. That was it. The second delivery, 2 days later, went to an apartment complex off Sunbury Road. 3rd floor. A younger man, maybe late 20s. He seemed to be expecting me. Signed quickly. Closed the door. I did 3 or 4 of these per week through October and into November. Always residential. Always during normal daytime hours. Always to people who seemed ordinary, unsurprised, and polite. The tracking numbers didn't connect to any clinic pickup I could identify in my tablet system, they simply appeared in my queue each morning, preloaded, with an address and a delivery window. I mentioned this to Marcus, one of the other drivers, during a morning load-in at the depot. He'd been with Meridian for 6 years. "Oh yeah, the warm ones," he said. "I had those on my route for a while. Lasco moved them to you, I guess. Do you know what they are?" He shrugged. "Genetic stuff. Paternity." That's what he told me. They go to houses, though. Not labs. Home testing kits, maybe. People send samples in, results come back in special packaging. I don't know, Renee. It's not our job to know. That was true. It wasn't. And for another 3 weeks, I didn't push it. What changed was Mrs. Courier. She was on my regular route, Dr. Patel's internal medicine practice on Cleveland Avenue. I picked up their outgoing specimens every morning at 8:15. Mrs. Courier was the office manager. We talked most mornings, briefly. She knew my daughter's name. She'd asked about Darren's knee surgery in September. Normal small-town friendliness layered over a professional interaction. On November 19th, Mrs. Courier's home address appeared in my lockbox delivery queue. I recognized it immediately because she'd once mentioned living on Minerva Lake Road, and there it was, the street name, the house number. Delivery window, 11 to 11:45 a.m. 1 warm pouch. 1 6-digit code. I almost called Peter. I almost asked someone. But I thought, paternity testing. Genetic screening. These are private matters. If Mrs. Courier was receiving results from some personal medical test, the last thing she'd want is her specimen courier asking questions about it at work. So I kept my mouth shut. I delivered the pouch at 11:20. Mrs. Courier answered the door in sweatpants and a fleece. She must have taken a half day. She signed without making eye contact, which was unlike her. She didn't say my name. She took the pouch and closed the door, and through the sidelight window I saw her carry it down the hallway toward the back of the house, quickly, like it was urgent. The next morning at Dr. Patel's office, she was back at her desk, cheerful, normal. She asked about Chloe's soccer season. I watched her face for something. I don't know what. She looked fine. She looked exactly like herself. December was dark and cold and I drove my route in the gray half-light of central Ohio winter. The lockbox deliveries increased to 5 or 6 per week. Always residential. Always the warm pouches. The recipients were always home, always expecting me, always quick and unsurprised. On December 4th, I delivered to a house on Innes Road and noticed the woman who answered the door had a bruise-colored mark on the inside of her left wrist. Not a bruise exactly. More like a stain beneath the skin, faintly iridescent, about the size of a quarter. She saw me looking and pulled her sleeve down. On December 11th, the men at the Sunbury Road apartment, my second ever lockbox recipient, buzzed me up again for another delivery. His fourth. When he opened the door this time, I noticed the smell. Not rot. Not infection. Something sweet and biological. Like the smell of a newborn scalp but stronger. Thicker. He looked thinner than before. His eyes were clear but set deeper in his face. I kept driving. On December 16th, I made a mistake. I was running behind traffic on 270, a late pickup at one of the clinics. I had 2 lockbox deliveries queued for the same window and the addresses were 3 miles apart. I rushed. At the first stop, a house on Carl Road, I grabbed the pouch from the lockbox and handed it to the woman at the door. She signed. I drove to the second address on Courier Avenue. Opened the lockbox. 2 pouches left inside. I'd loaded 3 that morning. Delivered 1. There should be 2. But I'd only scanned 1 at the first house. I checked my tablet. The delivery to Carl Road was confirmed. 1 pouch. 1 signature. But I distinctly remembered grabbing the pouch with my left hand and nothing else. I distinctly remembered the lockbox having 2 pouches in it when I closed it at 10:15. 3 loaded. 1 delivered. 2 remaining. The math was right. Except at 6:45 that morning, during load-in, I had counted them myself. I placed them in the lockbox one at a time, because the latch was stiff and I had to hold it open with my elbow. I counted. 1. 2. 2 pouches. Not 3. I sat in the van on Courier Avenue for 4 minutes. The heater ran. The tablet showed my next stop blinking. I could not account for the 3rd pouch. It had not been in my queue that morning. It was not assigned to an address. It had no 6-digit code. I delivered the remaining 2 pouches to their designated recipients and drove back to the depot. I didn't mention it to anyone. I told myself I'd miscounted. But I hadn't miscounted. On December 20th, it happened again. 2 pouches loaded at morning. 3 in the lockbox by noon. The 3rd had no code, no label, no assignment. It was warm, warmer than the others. Almost hot. I could feel the heat through the insulated material when I lifted it. I put it back. I closed the lockbox. I finished my route. When I returned to the depot at 2:10, I opened the lockbox to remove it and bring it to Peter. It was gone. The lockbox was empty. My tablet showed only the 2 completed deliveries. There was no record that a 3rd pouch had existed. But I'd held it. I'd felt the heat of it against my palm through the insulation. I'd put it back and closed the latch and I'd heard it click. I went to Peter's office. He was at his desk with his thermos. The lockbox items, I said. I had an extra today. And last week. Something that wasn't in the system. He looked at me over his reading glasses. His expression didn't change. Did you deliver it? No. I put it back. And then it was gone. Then there's no problem, Renee. But where did it come from? It wasn't in my load-in. Sometimes the system generates a return. A recipient who didn't answer, a previous attempt. It cycles back through the nearest vehicle. If it resolved itself, it found its route. It resolved itself. Is your lockbox empty now? Yes. Then you're all set. Have a good holiday. He smiled. He meant it. There was nothing performed about it, nothing concealing. He either believed what he'd said or was so practiced at saying it that I couldn't find the seam. Christmas came. 2 weeks off. Darren's parents visited from Zanesville. Chloe was in the school concert. We drove to Hocking Hills and rented a cabin for 3 days. Normal life. I didn't think about the pouches. When I came back to work on January 6th, Marcus was gone. Not fired. Not quit. His van was still parked at the depot with his clipboard on the passenger seat and his coffee mug in the cup holder. Peter said he'd transferred to the Columbus West route, working out of the Hilliard office. I called Marcus's cell that night. It went to voicemail, a generic carrier message, not his voice. I texted. No response. I never heard from him again. His route had been absorbed into mine and another driver's. My stops increased from 14 to 19. 3 new lockbox deliveries per week were added to my queue. The addresses were in neighborhoods I didn't know, areas south of the city, past Obetz, near the county line. On January 14th, I delivered to a house on Lockbourne Road. Small ranch, chain-link fence, dog barking inside. A teenage girl answered. Maybe 16. She looked at the pouch in my hands and her face did something I can't fully describe. Not fear. Not excitement. Something between hunger and recognition. She reached for it before I'd even offered the tablet for signature. I need a signature, I said. My mom usually signs. Is she home? The girl shook her head. She's at the hospital. I can come back. No, she said it quickly. Almost desperately. Please. She told me to take it if it came. She said it can't wait. I let her sign. Her handwriting was shaky. She took the pouch and held it against her chest with both arms, the way Chloe holds a stuffed animal when she's scared, and backed into the house without closing the door. I stood on the porch for a moment and watched her carry it down the hallway. The smell reached me from inside. That same sweetness. But under it, something mineral. Something like hot copper. I got back in the van and sat there. 11:47 a.m. A Tuesday. Bright winter sun on the windshield. A school bus passed. I opened the lockbox. The extra pouch was there again. Warm. Unlabeled. Unassigned. I picked it up. I held it in both hands in my lap. I could feel something inside it shift, not like liquid, not like a solid object sliding. Like something adjusting itself. Settling into a new position. The way a sleeping cat rearranges when you pick it up. I held it for 11 seconds. Then I put it back in the lockbox, closed the latch, and drove to my next stop. At my next stop, a routine blood draw pickup at the Morse Road Urgent Care, I opened the lockbox again. Still there. At the stop after that, at the reference lab on Sinclair Road where I dropped off the morning specimens, I opened it again. Still there. But cooler now. As if it was losing heat. as if something inside it was running out of time. I drove back to the depot. I didn't open the lockbox again. When I arrived at 2:15, I went straight to Peter's office. He was putting on his coat, about to leave. "The extra pouch is back," I said. "It's in my lockbox right now. I didn't deliver it. I don't know where it goes." He stopped with one arm in his coat sleeve. For the first time, his expression had something in it I hadn't seen before. Not guilt. Concern. The kind of look a parent gets when a child finds something breakable. "Did you open it?" "No." "Did you keep it in the box?" "Yes." "Okay." He pulled his coat on the rest of the way. "Go home, Renee. I'll take care of it." "Peter, what are these things?" He walked past me toward the loading dock. "Go home. Pick up your daughter. Have a good evening." I followed him out. He went to my van, opened the back, opened the lockbox. He stood there for a moment. Then he closed the lockbox again. "It's empty," he said. I looked. He was right. "They always find where they're going," he said. That was the last time he addressed it directly. January became February. I kept driving. The lockbox deliveries continued, 5, 6, sometimes 7 per week. I started paying closer attention to the recipients. I started looking at them. The woman on Dempsey Road, my first ever lockbox delivery back in October. I drove past her house on February 3rd, off route, on my way to a pickup that was 3 streets over. There was an ambulance in the driveway. Not running lights. Just parked. 2 EMTs were on the porch, talking to a man in the doorway, her husband, maybe. He was calm. They were calm. Nobody was rushing. I slowed but didn't stop. The next morning, I checked the local news. Nothing. On February 8th, I delivered to a new address on Agler Road. First-time recipient. A man in his 60s, healthy-looking, retired maybe, wearing a flannel shirt and holding a cup of coffee. He signed and took the pouch and said, "Finally." Just that one word. Then he smiled at me like I'd given him a gift. On February 12th, I delivered a second pouch to the teenage girl on Lockbourne Road. Her mother answered this time. The mother was thin. Too thin. Her eyes were bright in a way that looked metabolic, feverish. But she moved easily, smiled easily, took the pouch easily. No sign of illness except for the thinness and the brightness and the smell that rolled out of the house in a warm wave when she opened the door. That night, at home, I held Chloe on the couch while we watched a movie. She fell asleep against me and I didn't move her for 2 hours. Darren came in and asked if I was okay. "Just tired," I said. I wasn't tired. I was counting. I was adding up pouches. 5 per week, average, since October. 20 weeks. That was 100 deliveries. 100 warm pouches hand-carried to people's front doors. 100 people I'd handed something to that I couldn't identify, couldn't verify, couldn't account for. And the extras. The ones that appeared. The ones that resolved themselves. The ones that found where they were going without me. On February 19th, I called the Ohio Department of Health. I didn't know who else to call. I explained that I was a medical courier and that I had concerns about unidentified specimens being delivered to residential addresses without proper labeling or documentation. The woman on the phone was polite. She took my name and the company name and said someone from the compliance division would follow up. No one ever did. On February 22nd, I went to the Franklin County Records office during my lunch break and searched for Meridian Specimen Logistics. They were registered, licensed, bonded. Everything current. I searched for Peter Lasco. Clean. No violations. No complaints on file. On February 24th, I drove past the Dempsey Road house again. It was empty. A realtor's sign was in the yard. The lockbox still had her address in my delivery history, 7 pouches between October and January. 7. Whatever she'd been receiving, she'd received a lot of it. I called the realtor's number on the sign. Told them I was a friend of the previous owner and asked if she'd moved. The estate is handling the sale, the realtor said. The owner passed in late January. Oh. Oh, I'm sorry. Was it sudden? I honestly don't know the details, ma'am. The family isn't local. I sat in the van in the realtor's parking lot. January. She'd been receiving pouches through January. She was dead by late January. One data point doesn't mean anything. People die. Middle-aged women have strokes, aneurysms, undiagnosed cancers. I didn't know her diagnosis. I didn't know if she was sick. She could have been receiving something therapeutic, something that was trying to help her and ultimately failed. I told myself that. But then I started looking for the others. The man on Sunbury Road, my second ever delivery. I drove to his apartment on February 27th. His name wasn't on the buzzer anymore. The mailbox for 3C was taped over with a strip of masking tape. The man on Carl Road, December. I found an obituary dated January 30th, Thomas Weldon, 58, of Columbus. Survived by 2 adult children. No cause of death listed. The woman I'd delivered to on Innis Road, the one with the mark on her wrist. Her house had a hospice care van parked outside when I drove past on March 1st. 4 recipients. 4 visible outcomes. Not all of them dead. The Innis Road woman was still alive, the girl on Lockbourne Road was still alive, her mother had answered the door last week. But the pattern was there. The early recipients were declining or gone. The newer ones were still receiving. I went to Peter on March 3rd. I was shaking. I hadn't slept. Darren had asked me 3 times what was wrong and I couldn't tell him because I didn't know how to say it. People are dying, I said. Peter looked up from his desk. The lockbox recipients. The residential deliveries. Peter, at least 2 of them are dead. Others are sick. I've seen it. He took off his glasses. Set them on the desk. Folded his hands. Renee, he said. Sit down. I sat. These are medical deliveries. The people receiving them are ill. They're part of programs. Treatment programs, compassionate use programs, things that operate outside standard channels because the standard channels are too slow or too restrictive for their conditions. What's in the pouches? Biological material. Cultured. Personalized to the patient. I don't know the specific science. That's above my involvement and yours. Then why no labels? Why no clinic? Why is it coming through us? Because the regulatory framework hasn't caught up with the science. These programs exist in a gray area. The patients signed consent. They know what they're receiving. We are just the transport. And the ones who died were dying before they started. That's why they were in the program, Renee. These are people who ran out of conventional options. He said it gently. He said it like he'd said it before, to other drivers, in other years. He said it the way a man explains something he genuinely believes is true. I wanted to believe him. Part of me did. And the extra pouches? I said. The ones that appear in my lockbox. He paused. Longer than before. Those are returns. From recipients who are no longer in the program. The system cycles them back for reallocation. They move by themselves, Peter. I close the box with one inside and it's gone when I open it. They get rerouted to another vehicle. There are other drivers in your zone. The system is designed to find the nearest. My van is parked. I'm the only one near it. Nobody else opens my lockbox. He put his glasses back on. He picked up his thermos. I think you should take a few days off, he said. I didn't take days off. I drove the next morning. And the next. I drove because I needed to understand, and the only data available was on the route itself. March 7th. I delivered to the girl on Lockbourne Road for the third time. Her mother didn't answer. The girl did. She looked different. Thinner, like her mother. That same brightness in her eyes. She signed and took the pouch, and this time I didn't leave the porch. Are you okay? I said. She looked at me. Really looked. Why? You look tired. I'm fine. I feel better than I've ever felt. Is your mom home? She's resting. Is she still going to the hospital? The girl's face changed. Hardened. 16 years old and looking at me like I was something that might take what she had. We don't need the hospital anymore, she said. Thanks to these. She closed the door. I walked back to the van. The smell followed me. Sweet and copper and something else now, something I couldn't name. Something alive. March 9th, 6:20 a.m. Load in at the depot. Dark outside. 2 other drivers loading their vans. I opened my lockbox to place the morning pouches. There was one already inside. No code. No label. Warm. The heat radiating through the insulation. But this time it was different. This time, there was something written on it. Not printed, written, in what looked like ballpoint pen, on the fabric of the pouch itself. An address. My address. My house. My street. My number. I didn't touch it. I backed away from the van and stood in the parking lot in the dark, in the cold, breathing steam, staring at the open cargo doors and the glow of the lockbox interior. The pouch sat there. My address faced up like it wanted to be read. I called Darren. 6:20 in the morning. He answered groggy. Is Chloe okay? She's sleeping. What's wrong? Is she okay? Go check. Renee. Go check right now. I heard him get up. Heard his feet on the hallway floor. Heard Chloe's door open. Heard the rustle of blankets. She's asleep. She's fine. What's going on? I'm coming home. You just got to work. I'm coming home right now. I closed the van. I didn't touch the pouch. I drove home in my personal car, which I'd parked at the depot. I was home by 6:45. Darren was making coffee, confused, watching me pace. Chloe was fine. Perfectly fine. Asleep in her bed with her mouth open and her arm hanging off the edge and her stuffed elephant wedged between her and the wall. I watched her breathe for a long time. At 8:15, my phone rang. Peter. Renee. Your van is still here with the engine cold. Are you all right? I'm not coming in today. Okay. Is everything? There was a pouch in my lockbox with my home address on it. Silence. 4 seconds. 5. I'll look into that, he said. That shouldn't happen. That's a system error. It was handwritten, Peter. I'll look into it. Take the day. Take the week if you need to. I took the week. Then I took another. Then I submitted my resignation by email on March 23rd. Peter responded with one line, understood. Your final check will be mailed. That should have been the end of it. I should be telling you this from the other side of a clean break, a woman who walked away from something strange and went back to her normal life. But on March 28th, 5 days after I quit, I came home from the grocery store and found a pouch on my front porch. No delivery van in sight. No footprints in the late spring mud by the steps. Just a small insulated pouch, warm, unlabeled, sitting on the welcome mat like it had been there all morning. I didn't touch it. I went inside. I called Darren at work. I asked him if anyone had been to the house. He said no. I asked if he'd ordered anything. He said no. I went back outside. The pouch was gone. The welcome mat was warm where it had been sitting. I could feel the heat with my palm. Residual, like something had been breathing there. April 2nd. Another pouch. This time on the passenger seat of my car, which was locked, in the garage, which was closed. I found it when I went to drive Chloe to a friend's house. I told Chloe to wait inside, and I stood in the garage staring at it. Warm. Soft. That same settling shift when I picked it up. I carried it to the garbage can at the end of the driveway. I dropped it in. I took Chloe to her friend's house. When I came back, the garbage can was upright, undisturbed. I opened it. Empty. The pouch was gone. The other garbage was gone too, the bag I'd put out that morning. All of it. The can was clean and dry inside as if it had never held anything. April 7th. I was making dinner. Chloe was at the kitchen table doing homework. Darren was in the shower. The house was warm and bright and normal and mine. Chloe said, "Mom, what's this?" I turned from the stove. She was holding a pouch. Small. Warm. The fabric soft in her 8-year-old hands. She'd found it in her backpack. Don't. I crossed the kitchen in 2 steps and took it from her. It was hot. Almost too hot to hold. Inside, something adjusted to my grip. That settling. That rearrangement. Where did you get this? It was in my bag. In the front pocket. I thought you put it there. I didn't put it there. What is it? I carried it to the back door. I walked into the yard. I threw it over the fence into the field behind our property, an empty half-acre of dead grass waiting for development. It was dark. I couldn't see where it landed. I went back inside. I washed my hands. I washed Chloe's hands. I finished making dinner and I didn't say anything to either of them because I didn't know what to say. At 11 p.m., Darren asleep, I went to the back window and looked out at the field. I could see the glow. Faint, in the grass, maybe 30 feet from the fence. A warmth. A soft bioluminescence, like embers seen through fabric. Just sitting there in the dark. By morning it was gone. No mark in the grass. Nothing. April 11th. I woke at 3 a.m. and Chloe was standing in the doorway of our bedroom. Her arms were at her sides and her eyes were open, but I could tell she was asleep. Sleepwalking. She'd done it once before, 2 years ago, on a night she had a fever. But she didn't have a fever now. I guided her back to bed. Her hands were warm. Much warmer than they should have been. I held her fingers and they radiated heat like she'd been gripping something for hours. Chloe. Baby. Wake up. She opened her eyes. Already open, but now awake. She looked at me with perfect clarity. The warm thing wants to help, she said. What? It wants to help. It said it knows I'm small. It said small ones grow faster. I held her. I held her so tightly she squirmed. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I watched her until the sun came up and she woke normally, cheerful, hungry, remembering nothing. I called Peter Lasko the next morning. His number was disconnected. I drove to the depot on Groveport Road. The building was there. The sign was there. But the lot was empty. No vans. No cars. The loading dock was closed. The office window was dark. I walked to the front door and it was locked. I looked through the glass. Inside, on the floor of the empty front office, in a row against the far wall, were 8 pouches. Warm light pulsed from them in slow rhythm. Not flickering. Breathing. 8 soft pulses in the dark of the empty building, perfectly synchronized. I backed away. I got in my car. I drove home. That was 3 weeks ago. The pouches still come. Not every day. Every 3 or 4 days, one appears somewhere in our house, a closet shelf, the laundry basket, once inside the refrigerator, cooling everything around it instead of being cooled. They disappear within hours if I don't touch them. But the intervals are getting shorter. And Chloe's hands are always warm now. Even in the morning. Even fresh from sleep. She hasn't sleepwalked again. She hasn't said anything strange. She's fine. She's perfect. She's herself. But yesterday I picked her up from school and her teacher pulled me aside. I just wanted to let you know, she said, Chloe's been absolutely wonderful lately. Really thriving. Her reading level jumped, her focus is incredible, she's helping other kids without being asked. She's like a different child. In the best way. She smiled at me. She meant it as good news. I smiled back. And on the drive home, I held my daughter's hand at a red light, and it was so warm. So warm I almost pulled away. And she looked at me with that brightness I'd seen in the woman on Lockbourne Road, in the girl at the door, in the men who said finally, like something he'd been waiting for had arrived. My daughter looked at me and said, I feel so good, Mom. I don't know what I delivered to those people for 8 months. I don't know what's in the pouches, and I don't know where they come from, and I don't know what they do, exactly, because the woman on Dempsey Road is dead and the girl on Lockbourne Road is thriving, and there's no consistency that I can find. But whatever it is, it has chosen my daughter now. It comes to our home. It finds its way inside. And the worst thing I can tell you, the thing that keeps me awake, the thing that makes me sit in the dark at 2 a.m. while my family sleeps and the house is quiet and the warm things breathe in whatever corner they've found tonight, is that my daughter is better. Measurably, observably better. Her grades. Her mood. Her kindness. Her health. Everything about her is improving in ways that make every teacher, every doctor, every other parent look at me and say, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." And I don't know whether it's fixing her or finishing her. I don't know whether it's feeding her or feeding on her. I don't know whether the people who died were failed by it or completed by it. I only know that it came to my house because I drove the route. Because I was the vector. Because I carried it in a lockbox for 8 months and never asked what it was, and now it knows my address and my daughter's name and the inside of her backpack and the temperature of her hands. I did this. I brought it here. I followed the route and carried the Nameless packages, and now one of them has her name on it and I can't take it back. And she feels so good. She feels so good, and I can't tell her to stop. April 16th, Wednesday. I started keeping a log. Not on my phone. I didn't trust anything digital after the tablet at Meridian had shown me deliveries that didn't exist in the system, after tracking numbers appeared and vanished without audit trails. I bought a composition notebook from the Dollar General on Main Street and I started writing everything down in pen. Entry 1. April 16th, 7:45 a.m. Chloe's forehead temperature, 99.1. Taken with the ear thermometer. She has no symptoms. No runny nose, no cough, no complaint. She ate 2 bowls of cereal and asked for a third. She has never asked for a third. Her hands were warm when she handed me her backpack at the bus stop. I held them for a moment, pretending to adjust her mittens, and the warmth was deep, not surface heat, not friction. It came from inside her palms, from the center of the bones. Entry 2. April 16th, 3:05 p.m. Checked her backpack when she got off the bus. Front pocket, main compartment, side pouches. Nothing. No pouch. She asked why I was going through her bag and I told her I was looking for a permission slip. She accepted this without suspicion. Her cheeks were flushed. She said she ran the whole mile in gym class without stopping. She has never done that before. She has exercise-induced asthma and carries an inhaler in her bag. I checked the inhaler. Full. And used since I'd refilled it in February. Entry 3. April 17th, 2:20 a.m. Woke to use the bathroom. Walked past Chloe's room. Her door was open 6 inches, normal, she likes it cracked for the hallway light. I looked in. She was lying on her back with both hands resting on her stomach, palms up. In the dark, I could see the faintest warm color against her palms. Not light exactly. Not a glow you could photograph. More like the afterimage of looking at a lamp, a persistent warm impression that shouldn't be there at 2 in the morning in a dark room with the curtains drawn. I stood in the hallway for 4 minutes. Counted. My breath was the loudest sound in the house. Darren snored softly behind me in our room. The furnace clicked once and was still. The color in her palms faded while I watched. Or my eyes adjusted. I couldn't tell. By 2:24, I couldn't see it anymore. Entry 4. April 17th, 6:50 a.m. No pouch anywhere in the house. Checked every room before Chloe woke up. Under furniture, inside closets, behind the washer. Nothing. Temperature outside, 38 degrees. Temperature inside Chloe's room, 74 degrees. Thermostat set to 68. I didn't write it down, but I stood in her room with the door closed and just felt the air. It was warmer in there by enough that I noticed. Not dramatically. Not like a heater was running. Just enough that when I walked back into the hallway, the difference registered on my face and forearms like stepping into shade. April 18th. I called the pediatrician's office. Made an appointment for a general checkup. The earliest they had was May 2nd. I took it. Then I called back and asked about the last time Chloe had been seen. The receptionist checked. November 14th, her annual well-child visit. Everything normal. Height and weight on track. No concerns noted. I asked if they could squeeze us in sooner. The receptionist said she'd put us on the cancellation list. That afternoon, while Chloe was at a neighbor's house playing with their daughter, I searched our property. The yard, the garage, the crawl space access panel in the hallway closet. I opened the crawl space hatch for the first time since we'd moved in 4 years ago. Flashlight in hand, I looked under the house. Dirt floor. Cinder block foundation walls. PVC pipes, copper pipes, ductwork. Spiderwebs in the corners, the dry husks of dead insects. Normal. All of it normal. Except the temperature. The crawl space should have been cold, it was April, the ground still holding winter chill. But the air that rose through the open hatch was warm. Mild, comfortable. I put my hand flat against the dirt floor, reaching in from the hallway. Warm. Not hot. Not alarming. Just warm the way skin is warm. The way the pouches were warm. That specific temperature, a biological temperature. A living temperature. I closed the hatch. I put the laundry basket back on top of it. I picked Chloe up from the neighbors and made her favorite dinner and watched her eat with appetite and energy and color in her cheeks and that brightness in her eyes that I now recognized from a dozen doorways where strangers had taken my deliveries and looked at me exactly like that. April 20th, Sunday. Darren took Chloe to his parents' house in Zanesville for the day. I stayed home, told them I had a headache. The moment their car was out of the driveway, I went to the crawl space again. This time I went in. Knees on the warm dirt. Flashlight sweeping the low space. Ductwork above me. The smell, that smell. Sweet and copper and alive. Faint, but present. Coming from the ground itself. I crawled to the center of the house, directly under the hallway, and I pressed my hand into the dirt. It gave. Slightly. Like pressing into firm clay. And then something pressed back. Not hard. Not aggressive. A gentle equalization of pressure. Like the dirt was breathing against my palm. I pulled my hand away and there was warmth on my skin that lingered for 10 minutes. I crawled out. I closed the hatch. I showered until the hot water ran out. When Darren and Chloe came home at 7, Chloe ran to me and hugged me and her body against mine was a furnace. Small and fierce and burning with something I didn't put there. Grandma says I'm growing like a weed, she said. You are, I said. You really are. Entry 7. April 22nd, 11:30 p.m. Pouch appeared again. Found it inside the linen closet on the second shelf, behind the spare pillowcases. Warm. Unlabeled. Soft interior shifting when I picked it up. Smaller than previous ones, maybe the size of a paperback novel. I held it for a long time. Longer than I should have. I stood in the hallway in the dark with Darren and Chloe asleep in their rooms, and I held this thing that had come into my house uninvited, and I tried to feel something from it. Not temperature. Something else. Intent. Direction. Some indication of what it wanted. It was just warm. It shifted once in my hands. Then settled. Then was still. I put it back in the closet. In the morning, it was gone. But the pillowcases it had rested against were warm to the touch until noon. April 24th. I drove to the Lockbourne Roadhouse. I don't know what I was looking for. Permission, maybe. Warning. Some evidence from another family further along this path. The mother answered. She was thin, thinner than before. But she was steady. Clear-eyed. She recognized me from the deliveries. You're the courier, she said. Not unfriendly. Neutral. I quit, I said. Back in March. Okay. Are you still receiving them? She looked at me for a long time. Then she stepped back from the door, not to invite me in, but to show me the hallway behind her. Her daughter appeared at the end of it, the 16-year-old, the hungry one. She was taller than I remembered. Visibly taller. And she moved with a kind of fluidity that teenagers don't usually have. Grace without self-consciousness. She was in a wheelchair 14 months ago, the mother said quietly. Degenerative spinal condition. Progressive. Terminal timeline of 5 to 7 years. I stared at the girl, who looked back at me from the hallway with those bright eyes, and she looked healthy. She looked more than healthy. She looked like health itself, refined and concentrated. And you? I said. Are you? I'm the same as I was. The mother touched her own sternum. I don't take them. They're for her. But you're losing weight. I'm not losing weight. She's gaining it. Taking it. From the house, from me, from everything nearby. That's how it works. It has to get the material from somewhere. She said it factually. The way you describe a medication's side effects. Known. Accepted. Weighed against the alternative. Your daughter, she said, looking at me. How old? 8. Is she sick? No. She's healthy. She was always healthy. The mother's expression shifted. Something flickered behind the calm, concern, maybe. Or pity. Then I don't know why they're coming to you, she said. For us, it was the diagnosis. The program found us after the third specialist said there was nothing left. Someone contacted me. I signed papers. It started the next month. Who contacted you? A woman. Over the phone. She didn't give a name. She said there was an option outside conventional medicine. She said it would require deliveries and patience and acceptance of uncertainty. Did she mention Meridian? She said a courier would come. That's all. I stood on her porch in the flat daylight of an April afternoon and I could hear birds and traffic and the normal sounds of a neighborhood, and none of it was louder than the thing I was trying to understand. "What happens if you stop?" I asked. "If the deliveries stop coming?" The mother's hand moved to the doorframe. She gripped it. "I don't know," she said. "And I don't intend to find out." She closed the door. I drove home. April 28, Monday. Entry 12. Chloe's teacher called. Not the regular call, a personal call, from her cell, after school hours. She said she wanted to talk about Chloe privately. "She's doing something I've never seen," the teacher said. "In 20 years of teaching. She's affecting the other kids." "What do you mean?" "The kids who sit near her. Their focus improves. Their test scores are going up, not dramatically, but measurably. 2 kids who were struggling all year are suddenly performing at grade level. And they all want to sit near Chloe. They all want to be around her. It's like she's—" I don't know how to say this without sounding crazy. "Say it." "It's like she's radiating something. The kids feel it. They gravitate. And the ones who spend the most time close to her are improving across every metric. Is this a concern?" "That's why I'm calling you," she said. "Because I don't know if it's a concern or a miracle. But something is different about your daughter and I wanted you to know that it's visible. Not just to me." I thanked her. I hung up. 11:47 p.m. Same night. I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs. I opened the crawl space hatch. The warmth rose like a breath. The sweet smell. The living smell. Stronger now than a week ago. I knelt and put both hands on the dirt. The ground pressed back. Slow. Rhythmic. A pulse. Maybe once every 4 seconds. Not my heartbeat. Something else's. And I understood, with the clarity that only comes at midnight when you're alone with something you can't tell anyone, that whatever was in the pouches, whatever I'd been delivering for 8 months, it was also here. Under my house. Under my daughter's bed. It hadn't just arrived in packages. It had come through the ground, the way heat comes through the ground, the way a root system extends beneath the grass without ever breaking the surface. The pouches weren't bringing it. The pouches were its fruit. Its offering. Something it produced and distributed, and I had been the hand that carried the fruit from the tree to the mouths it had chosen. And now it had chosen a mouth in my house. And the tree was growing underneath us. May 1st, entry 15. Chloe's pediatrician appointment moved up, a cancellation opened on the 1st. I took her in. Height, up 1.4 inches since November. Weight, up 6 pounds. Both numbers outside her normal growth curve. The doctor noted it, checked it twice, asked about diet and activity. "She's been really active," I said. "Eating a lot. Growth spurts happen," the doctor said. "But this is more than I'd typically see in 5 months. Not alarming, but I want to recheck in 6 weeks. Heart rate, 62 BPM. Normal for an adult. Low for an 8-year-old. Has she been doing a lot of cardio?" the doctor asked. "Running in gym class," I said. "Her resting heart rate is more consistent with a trained adolescent athlete. It's not a problem, it's actually a marker of cardiovascular efficiency. But it's unusual for her age." Blood work came back 2 days later. All normal ranges. Every single value within parameters. The doctor's note said, remarkably healthy. No concerns. I put the lab results in my notebook. I stared at them. Remarkably healthy. The same words you'd use for the girl on Lockbourne Road, walking without a wheelchair, growing taller by the month, thriving. The same brightness. The same warmth. But the mother on Lockbourne Road was shrinking. Thinning. The thing had to get its material from somewhere, she'd said. I weighed myself that night. 142 pounds. Same as February. Same as always. I weighed Darren's coffee mug on the kitchen scale. 14 ounces. Same as it always was. Nothing in our house was shrinking. Nothing was being consumed. Not visibly. Not measurably. But the Dempsey Road woman was dead. Thomas Weldon was dead. The people who died, were they the material? Were they what it consumed to produce the fruit it gave to others? Had I been carrying pieces of the dying to feed to the living? May 3rd, 4 a.m. I woke and Darren was not in bed. I found him in the kitchen, standing at the sink, drinking water. He turned when I came in and his face was normal, sleepy, a little confused. Couldn't sleep, he said. Hot. I touched his forehead. Warm. His hands. Warm. You feel feverish. I'm fine. Just hot. The house is hot. The thermostat read 68. Set to 68. But he was right. The house was warm. The floors were warm through my socks. The walls, when I pressed my palm to them, held heat like they'd been in sun for hours. I checked Chloe. Asleep. Peaceful. Her room was warmer than the hallway. Her skin, when I touched her cheek, was the warmest thing in the house. I went back to bed. I did not sleep. Entry 18. May 5th. No pouch has appeared in 12 days. The longest gap since they started coming to the house. But the ground temperature beneath the crawl space has increased. I've been checking with a meat thermometer pushed into the dirt. April 20th, 71 degrees. April 28th, 74 degrees. May 3rd, 78 degrees. May 5th, 81 degrees. The ambient temperature outside has been averaging 55. Something is building heat under my house. Something is storing it. Something is growing. And my daughter is growing too. And she is happier and stronger and kinder and better in every way a parent could hope for. And I cannot tell whether I should tear the floor open or leave it alone. I cannot tell whether I am protecting her by staying here or feeding something by keeping her close to it. The woman on Lockbourne Road stayed. Her daughter walks now. The woman is thinner but alive. The mother chose. She chose knowingly. The woman on Dempsey Road received 7 pouches and died. What's the difference? I don't know the difference. May 6th. Last night. I was sitting at the kitchen table at 11 p.m., writing in the notebook, when Chloe appeared in the doorway. Not sleepwalking this time. Awake. Clear-eyed. Barefoot on the warm hardwood floor. Mom, she said. Baby. Go back to bed. Mom, you're scared. I'm not scared. I'm just working on something. You're scared of the warm thing. I put the pen down. What warm thing, Chloe? She came to me. She stood beside my chair and put her hand on my arm. Her palm was so hot it almost hurt. Not burning. Not damaging. Just intensely, impossibly warm. Like touching a mug of tea just poured. "It's not mean," she said. "It doesn't want to hurt you. It doesn't want to hurt anyone. It just grows. That's all it does. It finds people who need growing and it helps them grow." "Who told you that?" "Nobody told me. I just know. The same way I know how to breathe." She looked at me with her clear brown eyes, her father's eyes, and she was 8 years old and she was my daughter and she was telling me something with total confidence that she should not have been able to know or articulate. "It's grateful to you," she said. "For carrying it. For bringing it to people. It wants you to know that." "Chloe, did something talk to you? In a dream? Did something?" "It doesn't talk. It's not like that. It's like a plant, Mom. Plants don't talk but you know what they need. You know when they're happy." She squeezed my arm. Then she let go and walked back to her room. I heard her climb into bed. I heard her breathing slow. I sat at the table with my notebook open and the pen in my hand and the warm floor under my feet and the warm walls around me and my warm, thriving, impossible daughter asleep down the hall. I don't know what's under my house. I don't know what I carried for 8 months in a lockbox in a white van. I don't know who Peter Lasco really was or where Meridian's pouches actually came from or what happened to Marcus or why some recipients died and others were healed. But I know this: it's under the foundation. It's in the ground. It pulses. It's warm. It's growing. My daughter is connected to it in a way I can't sever without knowing whether severing would save her or kill her. And every day she is stronger and kinder and more alive, and every day the ground is warmer, and every day I am more afraid that the warmth is not a gift but a gestation, and that what's growing under this house is not growing for her but growing from her, and that by the time I understand the difference, she'll be the material, the warm soft thing inside the pouch, and someone else's courier will carry her away in their hands without ever knowing her name. I sit here at night. The house breathes around me. The floor holds its heat. And my daughter feels so good. And I don't know how to save her from something that looks exactly like being saved.